You're useless. My husband said those words to me for the first time when our son was 1 year old. Standing in our kitchen, holding our baby, exhausted from a sleepless night, he looked at the dishes in the sink and said it like it was a fact, like it was obvious, like everyone knew. You're useless. He said it again when our daughter was 3, when I forgot to pick up his dry cleaning, when I burned dinner, when I asked if I could take a class, when I suggested we save money differently, when I existed in a way that inconvenienced him. For 20 years, he said it, in front of our children, in front of his friends, in front of my family, until I started to believe it, until I looked in the mirror and saw exactly what he told me I was. Nothing. Useless. A burden he was generous enough to carry. I'm 53 years old now, and I'm about to tell you a story about what happened when I finally stopped believing him, when I discovered that everything he told me about myself was a lie, when the real world he said I couldn't survive in came calling. And when it did, everything changed. Before I start, I need to know you're really listening. Drop your city or country in the comments right now. Let me know where you're watching from. And please, hit that subscribe button because I share real stories like this every single day. Stories about women who were told they were nothing and discovered they were everything. This story is about marriage, about words that destroy you slowly over decades, about competence that gets buried under someone else's insecurity, about the moment when the truth finally comes out, and the person who made you feel small realizes exactly how wrong they were. My husband called me useless for 20 years. He destroyed my confidence, my sense of self, my belief in my own abilities. And then something happened that he never saw coming. Something that changed everything. Something that proved every word he ever said to me was a lie. I can't wait to tell you what it was. But first, let me take you back to where it all started. Back to when I was 24 years old and had everything. Before I gave it all away to a man who convinced me I was nothing. Back to the moment I made the biggest mistake of my life. Stay with me, because this story ends somewhere my husband never imagined possible. And it starts with a woman who believed she was useless, learning that she never was. I graduated with my MBA from the University of Chicago in 1994. I was 22 years old, top of my class, multiple job offers. I chose Andersen Consulting because they were the best, the smartest people, the hardest problems, the kind of place where you proved yourself every single day. My starting salary was $75,000. In 1994, that was serious money for a 22-year-old woman. I was good at what I did. Strategy, operations, taking complicated business problems and finding elegant solutions. I loved it, lived for it, worked 80-hour weeks and didn't even notice because I was building something, a career, a reputation, a future. I met Derek in 1995 at a friend's wedding. He was 28, working in sales for a mid-sized tech company. Nice guy, charming, confident. He made $45,000 a year. I made more than he did. It didn't bother me, but I could tell it bothered him. Must be nice, he'd say, when I talked about a promotion or a raise. Some of us have to work for it. I thought he was joking. I laughed it off, didn't see the resentment building underneath the jokes. We got married in June 1996. I was 24, he was 27. Beautiful wedding. I kept working, kept climbing. By then I was making $85,000. Derek was making $50,000. The gap was widening. So was the tension. He started making comments. Small ones at first. You're never home. You care more about your job than me. I need a wife, not a roommate who pays bills. I tried to balance, worked fewer hours, turned down a transfer to New York that would have fast-tracked my career, put his needs first, tried to be a better wife. But it was never enough. In 1998, I got pregnant with our son, Jake. I was 26, still working, still consulting, planning to take maternity leave and come back. That's what professional women did. That's what I'd always planned. But Derek had other ideas. Caroline, be realistic. Childcare costs almost as much as you make, and you'll be exhausted. Traveling for work with a baby at home, that's not fair to our son. One of us needs to be there full time. Why does it have to be me? Because I make more now. I got promoted, I'm making $65,000. You make $85,000, but after taxes and childcare, we'd barely break even. And honestly, kids need their mother. That's just biology. It wasn't biology. It was economics dressed up as biology. But I was 26 and pregnant and tired. And part of me wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that staying home was a choice I was making, not a sacrifice I was being asked to make. Just until Jake starts school, Derek said. 5 years. Then you can go back. Your career will still be there. I believed him. Gave my notice in December 1998. Jake was born in January 1999. And my career ended the day I walked out of that office for the last time. The first year wasn't terrible. Jake was a good baby. I was exhausted but happy. Told myself I was doing the right thing, that I could always go back, that 5 years wasn't forever. But Derek was different. Now that I wasn't working, he controlled everything. The money, the decisions, the household. I went from earning $85,000 to asking permission to buy groceries. How much did you spend at Target? Do you really need new clothes? You're home all day. I'm working 10-hour days and you can't even keep the house clean? The first time he called me useless, Jake was 1 year old. I'd had a hard day. Jake was teething, crying constantly. I hadn't showered, hadn't done dishes, hadn't started dinner. Derek came home and looked around like he'd walked into a disaster zone. What did you do all day? I've been holding him. I'm exhausted. Caroline, I'm working all day to support this family. The least you can do is keep the house together. I mean, you're home. What else do you have to do? And you can't even manage basic housework? You're useless. Useless. The word hit me like a slap. I stood there holding our crying son, wearing clothes I'd slept in, and felt the word sink into my skin. Useless. I told myself he was just stressed, just tired, just frustrated. It didn't mean anything. But he said it again and again and again, until it stopped feeling like an insult and started feeling like a diagnosis, a fact about who I was. Our daughter Emma was born in 2002. I was 30 years old, 2 kids, no career, no income, no identity outside of Derek's wife and Jake and Emma's mom. The woman with the MBA and the consulting job felt like someone else, someone I used to be, someone who disappeared. Derek's career kept growing. By 2003, he was making $90,000 a year. We'd bought a bigger house, had nice things. From the outside, we looked successful, happy. But inside, I felt myself shrinking, getting smaller, quieter, less. I started volunteering at a local nonprofit in 2004, Community Forward Fund. They helped low-income families with financial literacy and resources. I joined their board, started helping with operations, budget planning, program development, things I used to be good at, things I'd almost forgotten I could do. It felt good to use my brain again, to solve problems, to be competent at something other than laundry and meal planning. But Derek didn't see it that way. Your little charity thing? That's cute, Caroline, but it's not real work. It's playing pretend. Don't confuse volunteering with having an actual career. You couldn't handle the real world anymore. You've been out too long. I was 32 years old, out of the workforce 6 years, and starting to believe that maybe he was right. Maybe I couldn't handle the real world anymore. Maybe I was exactly what he said I was. Useless. But the nonprofit didn't think so. They asked me to chair the operations committee, to help them restructure the programs, to apply for grants, to do real work that made a real difference. I said yes. Not because I thought I could do it, but because for the first time in 6 years, someone asked me to do something other than wash dishes and fold laundry. Someone saw me as more than useless. I just didn't see it yet myself. The nonprofit became my refuge. The one place where I wasn't Derek's useless wife, or the mom who forgot to sign permission slips. I was Caroline.
the person I used to be, the person who could solve problems and create systems and make things work. Community Forward Fund was small when I joined in 2004. Annual budget of $200,000, 3 staff members, 12 board members who meant well but had no idea how to run an organization. Programs were scattered. Record-keeping was a mess. They were doing good work but barely surviving financially. I started small, reorganized the filing system, created a budget tracking spreadsheet, suggested we apply for grants we'd been ignoring because nobody knew how. Basic stuff, things any competent person could do. But to them, it was magic. Within 6 months, the board chairman asked me to take over operations completely. "Caroline, you're better at this than any of us. Would you consider becoming our operations advisor? It's volunteer, of course. We can't pay. But you'd essentially run the day-to-day while our executive director handles programs and fundraising." I said yes immediately. Didn't even think about it. Someone was asking me to do something I was good at. Someone saw value in me. That was enough. Derek's reaction was predictable. Operations advisor? For a charity? Caroline, that's not a real position. You're volunteering, playing office. Don't act like you have a career. I'm managing a $200,000 budget, overseeing staff. That's real. It's a hobby. When you bring home a paycheck, then we can talk about you having a career. Until then, you're a housewife with a charity hobby. Don't confuse the two. I stopped talking to him about it. Let him think it was nothing. Let him dismiss it. But I kept working, kept building, kept proving to myself that I still had value, even if my husband couldn't see it. By 2008, I'd been operations advisor for 4 years. Community Forward Fund's budget had grown to $500,000. We'd added staff, expanded programs. I'd secured 3 major grants by writing applications that highlighted our efficiency and impact. Our overhead costs were the lowest in the region because I had streamlined everything. The board wanted to give me a title that reflected what I actually did, Chief Operating Officer. They still couldn't pay me, the money wasn't there, but the title was accurate. I was running operations, making decisions, leading. I didn't tell Derek about the title. He'd already made it clear that volunteer work didn't count, that I was playing pretend. Why give him more ammunition? By 2010, I was essentially running the organization. The executive director handled external relationships and fundraising. I handled everything internal. Operations, finance, HR, systems, strategy. All the things I used to do at Anderson Consulting. All the skills I thought I'd lost. Turns out I hadn't lost anything. I'd just been told I had. In 2012, I restructured our entire program delivery model, analyzed data, identified inefficiencies, redesigned workflows, cut costs by 30% while increasing the number of families we served by 200%. We were doing more with less, better outcomes, lower overhead. Exactly what I'd been trained to do 15 years earlier. The board was ecstatic. Other nonprofits started asking how we'd done it. I presented at a regional nonprofit conference, wrote a case study, became known in the nonprofit community as someone who could transform operations. But at home, I was still useless. Derek's career had plateaued. He'd changed companies in 2016, moved to Velocity Software Solutions as sales director. Good title, good salary, but he wasn't rising the way he had expected, wasn't becoming VP, wasn't getting the recognition he thought he deserved. And watching me succeed, even in a volunteer capacity, made it worse. You know why nonprofits love you, Caroline, because you work for free. Nobody would pay you. You're 44 years old and you've been out of real work for 18 years. You think any actual company would hire you? They wouldn't. You're too old, too outdated, too useless for anything except charity work that doesn't matter. The words hurt more because part of me believed them. Yes, I was succeeding at the nonprofit, but that was different, wasn't it? Nonprofits were easier, less competitive, not the real world Derek always talked about. Maybe he was right. Maybe I couldn't handle a real job anymore. In 2015, we launched our biggest fundraising campaign ever. Goal was $2 million to build a community resource center. I led the operational planning, created the budget, developed the sustainability model, showed donors exactly how their money would be used and what impact it would create. We raised $2.3 million, exceeded our goal by 15%. The board chairman cried at the celebration dinner, told everyone I was the reason it happened, that my planning and my vision and my competence made it possible. Derek didn't come to the dinner, said he had to work late. When I got home and told him we'd exceeded our goal, he barely looked up from his laptop. That's nice. Did you remember to pick up my dry cleaning? By 2015, I'd been volunteering at Community Forward Fund for 11 years, out of corporate work for 17 years. I was 43 years old, my children were teenagers, Jake was 16, Emma was 13. They were busy with school and friends and sports, didn't need me the way they used to. I had time, energy, skills that were clearly still sharp, but when I looked at my resume, all I saw was a giant gap. 1998 to present, stay-at-home mother, no corporate experience, no paid work, just volunteer operations for a small nonprofit. Who would hire someone like that? Who would see past the gap to the competence underneath? Derek had convinced me nobody would, that I was unemployable, that the only place I had value was in a charity that couldn't afford to pay me, that I should be grateful he still supported me even though I contributed nothing. I was 43 years old, and I believed I was useless, despite running $1 million operation, despite transforming an organization, despite proving every single day that I was exactly as competent as I had been at 24. I just couldn't see it yet. But someone else would. Someone who would look at my work and see exactly what I was capable of. Someone who would value what Derek had spent 17 years dismissing. That was still 8 years away. 8 more years of believing I was useless. 8 more years of Derek's words eroding what little confidence I'd managed to rebuild. But those 8 years were also building something Derek couldn't see. A track record, a reputation, proof of competence that couldn't be dismissed as cute charity work. I was creating the resume that would change everything. I just didn't know it yet.
Derek started at Velocity Software Solutions in 2016 as sales director. It was supposed to be his big break, a growing company, room to advance. Finally, the VP position he'd been chasing for years. He talked about it constantly those first few months. The company culture, the CEO, James Mitchell, the growth potential, how this was finally his chance to prove himself, to become someone important. I listened, encouraged him, celebrated with him because that's what I did. Support his career while mine didn't exist. He was promoted to VP of Sales in 2018, finally got the title he wanted, the salary he thought he deserved, $150,000 a year, corner office, team of 12 sales reps reporting to him. He'd made it. But something shifted after the promotion. He got meaner. Maybe it was because even with the title, he still felt inadequate. His sales numbers were good, but not great. His team had high turnover. People didn't like working for him. Management noticed. I could tell from the way he came home angry more often, defensive, looking for someone to blame. That someone was usually me. You know what my problem is, Caroline? I come home to this, to you, sitting around doing your little charity work while I'm actually building a career, carrying this family financially while you contribute nothing. I raise our children. I manage our home. I run operations for an organization that serves 3,000 families a year. You volunteer. There's a difference. Real work pays. Real work matters. What you do, it's a hobby for bored housewives who need to feel important. By 2021, both kids were in college. Jake graduated high school in 2017 and went to University of Wisconsin. Emma followed in 2021 to Northwestern. We were empty nesters. The house that used to be full of noise and chaos was suddenly quiet. I was 49 years old. No children at home, no reason to stay home anymore, and a growing certainty that I needed something more than volunteer work and a marriage that felt like slow suffocation. I brought it up one evening in late 2021. Derek was scrolling on his phone, half listening the way he always did. "I've been thinking about going back to work. Real work. Paid work." He looked up. Laughed. Actually laughed. "Doing what exactly?" "Caroline, you're 49 years old. You've been out of corporate work for 23 years. Your MBA is almost 30 years old. Technology has completely changed. Business has completely changed. You have no idea how things work now. I've been running operations at Community Forward for 17 years. I know how things work. You've been playing office at a tiny nonprofit. That's not the same as real business. Real companies have competition, pressure, standards. You wouldn't last a week. And honestly, who would hire you? A 50-year-old woman with a resume gap the size of the Grand Canyon? Nobody. That's who." The words landed like punches. 50-year-old woman, resume gap. Nobody would hire you. I tried again 6 months later, spring 2022. Same conversation, worse outcome. "I'm serious about this, Derek. I want to work. I need to work. I feel invisible. Like I don't exist outside of being your wife. You're being dramatic. You have everything you need. A nice house, financial security, freedom to do your charity thing. Most women would be grateful. I don't want to be grateful. I want to be valued, respected, paid for my work. Then get a job. See what happens. Go ahead. Apply places. See how many callbacks you get. See how fast reality hits you. You're not marketable, Caroline. I'm sorry to be blunt, but someone needs to tell you the truth. You're unemployable. The only thing you're qualified for is entry-level administrative work. Is that what you want? To be someone's secretary at 50, making $30,000 a year while I make $150? At least I'd be doing something that matters. Your charity work doesn't matter. Not in the real world. Not to real businesses. You're useless in the marketplace. Accept it and stop pretending you're something you're not." Useless in the marketplace. That was new phrasing. Same message he'd been delivering for 20 years, just more refined, more targeted, designed to hurt precisely where I was most vulnerable. I didn't bring it up again. Didn't talk about working, didn't mention my growing unhappiness or my desperate need to be something other than Derek's wife who did charity work that didn't matter. I just kept working at Community Forward, kept proving my competence to everyone, except the one person whose opinion I stupidly still cared about. By 2023, I was 51 years old, married 27 years, out of paid work for 25 years, both kids graduated college and starting their own lives. And I was lonelier than I'd ever been. Invisible. Dismissed. Convinced that maybe Derek was right. Maybe I was unemployable. Maybe 25 years was too long. Maybe I'd waited too late. The final breaking point came in November 2023. A Thursday evening. Derek came home frustrated about something at work. A team member had quit. His boss had questioned his management style. He was defensive and angry and looking for a target. "What did you do today?" That question, the one that always preceded criticism. "Board meeting at Community Forward. We are restructuring our financial literacy program. I presented the new model." "Congratulations. You had a meeting about a free program nobody cares about. Meanwhile, I had to deal with actual business problems, actual employees, actual money on the line. Derek, I'm tired of you dismissing what I do. I'm tired of you pretending it matters. You want to know the truth, Caroline? The real truth? You're 51 years old. You've been out of work for 25 years. You have an MBA from 30 years ago and volunteer experience at a nonprofit nobody's heard of. Nobody would hire you. Nobody wants you. You're useless in the marketplace, completely useless. And the sooner you accept that and stop fantasizing about some career comeback, the better off you'll be. Useless. After everything I'd done, everything I'd accomplished, everything I'd sacrificed, I was useless. I didn't cry, didn't argue, didn't defend myself. I just went upstairs, sat on the edge of our bed, and felt something inside me break. Or maybe it was something finally breaking free. 25 years of this. 25 years of being told I was nothing, that my work didn't matter, that I had no value outside this house and this marriage and this man who couldn't see me at all. I picked up my phone, texted my friend Trish. We'd known each other since our kids were in elementary school together. She'd stayed in corporate, senior VP at a marketing firm, successful, respected, everything I'd given up. Can we have coffee tomorrow? I need to talk. She responded immediately. Of course. Everything okay? No. But it's going to be. I didn't know what that meant yet. Didn't have a plan. Didn't know what I was going to do, but something had shifted. Some fundamental certainty that I couldn't keep living like this. Couldn't keep accepting Derek's version of who I was. I was 51 years old, and I was about to discover that everything my husband told me about myself was a lie. I just needed someone to show me how to see it.
I met Trish for coffee the next morning at a Starbucks in downtown Minneapolis. Friday morning, cold December day. She was already there when I arrived. Gray suit, confident, put together. Everything I wasn't. She hugged me, ordered me a latte. We sat by the window and she waited. Didn't push, just waited for me to talk. Derek told me I'm useless, again, for the 1,000th time. But this time it actually broke something. I can't keep doing this, Trish. I can't keep living like I'm nothing. You're not nothing. You know that, right? Do I? I haven't had a real job in 25 years. Derek's right about that part. Who would hire me? I'm 51. My MBA is ancient. My last corporate job was in 1998. I'm exactly what he says I am, unemployable. Trish set down her coffee, looked at me hard. Caroline, what do you do at Community Forward Fund? I volunteer, run operations, budget, programs, staff management. You know all this. And how big is their budget now? About $1.2 million annually. And how many staff? 8 full-time, 12 part-time. And how many families do you serve? Around 3,000. Caroline, you're chief operating officer of a $1 million organization with 20 employees and 3,000 clients. That's not volunteering, that's a full-time executive position. The only difference is they don't pay you. But it's nonprofit. It's different. Derek says it doesn't count because it's not real business. Derek is wrong. Do you know what a COO does at a for-profit company? Exactly what you do. Operations, finance, HR, systems, strategy. The only difference is the bottom line. You optimize for impact instead of profit. That's actually harder, and the skills are identical. Nobody would see it that way. Then make them see it. Caroline, do you have a LinkedIn profile? No, I've never needed one. You need one now. Go home, create a profile, and don't you dare put stay-at-home mom or volunteer. You list yourself as Chief Operating Officer. You list your accomplishments, budget growth, operational efficiency, program expansion, fundraising, everything you've actually done. You write it like the executive position it is, because that's what it is. I wanted to believe her, but 25 years of Derek's voice in my head made it hard. Nobody will take it seriously. Try me. Create the profile this weekend, send me the link. I'll review it. And Caroline, stop letting Derek define your worth. He's been wrong about you for 25 years. Maybe it's time you stop believing him. I went home. Derek was at a golf outing. The house was empty and quiet.
I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and opened LinkedIn for the first time. The profile creation felt impossible at first. How did I describe what I did? How did I make 25 years of unpaid work sound legitimate? But then I stopped trying to make it sound like something and just wrote what it actually was. Chief Operating Officer, Community Forward Fund 2008 to present. Led operational transformation of nonprofit organization, increasing budget from $200K to $1.2 million while maintaining overhead below 15%. Restructured program delivery, achieving 200% increase in families served with 30% reduction in costs. Secured $2.3 million in grant funding, managed a team of 20 staff across multiple program areas, developed and implemented strategic plans, financial systems, and performance metrics. Prior, management consultant, Anderson Consulting, 1994 to 1998. MBA, University of Chicago. I stared at it. That was my career. That was what I'd actually done. Written out like that, it didn't look like volunteering. It looked like 26 years of legitimate executive experience. I sent the link to Trish. She called me 10 minutes later. That's perfect. Now make your profile public, add a professional photo, and Caroline, get ready. Recruiters live on LinkedIn. Someone's gonna notice you. I didn't believe her, but I did what she said, made the profile public, added a photo from a recent nonprofit event where I actually looked professional, and then I closed my laptop and tried not to think about it. 3 weeks later, in early January 2024, I got a message. Vanessa Brooks, Executive Recruiter, Summit Search Partners. Hi, Caroline. I came across your profile and was impressed by your operational leadership at Community Forward Fund. I'm currently working with a client seeking a COO for a mid-sized software company. Their current COO is retiring. They need someone who can streamline operations, improve efficiency, and build a stronger culture. When I saw your track record, I thought you'd be perfect. Would you be open to a conversation? I read it 5 times. A recruiter looking for a COO for a real company, a software company. She thought I was qualified. I almost didn't respond, almost deleted it, almost let Derek's voice win. Nobody would hire you, you're unemployable, you're useless. But something Trish said kept echoing. Stop letting Derek define your worth. I typed back. I'd be interested in learning more. Vanessa called the next day. She was 42, sharp, professional. She talked fast like someone who didn't waste time. Caroline, I'll be direct. My client is Velocity Software Solutions. They're a B2B software company, about 200 employees, $50 million in revenue. Their current COO is retiring. They need someone who can streamline operations, improve efficiency, and build a stronger culture. When I saw your track record, I thought you'd be perfect. Velocity Software Solutions. The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. Derek never told me the name of his company, just called it Work or The Office. I had no idea where he actually worked. I haven't worked in corporate in 25 years. I'm not sure I'm what they're looking for. Caroline, you've been working in corporate for 25 years. You just weren't getting paid for it. Operations is operations. What you did at Community Forward, transforming efficiency, managing budgets, leading teams, that's exactly what they need. The CEO specifically wants someone with nonprofit experience. He thinks nonprofit leaders have a different mindset, mission-driven, focused on impact over ego. That's the culture he's trying to build. When would they want to meet? Next week if you're available. I'll send details. I hung up and sat there shaking. A real interview for a real COO position. At a real company with $50 million in revenue. Someone thought I was qualified. Derek came home that evening. I didn't tell him. Didn't mention Norcruiter, or the interview, or the fact that someone in the real world saw me as exactly what he said I'd never be. Employable, valuable, qualified. I just smiled and asked about his day, and served dinner, and played the useless wife he thought I was. But inside, something had shifted. Some small kernel of belief that maybe, just maybe, Derek had been wrong all along. The interview was January 15th. I wore a navy suit I'd bought for nonprofit events, walked into Velocity's office building downtown, glass and steel, modern, impressive. I met with James Mitchell, the CEO, 60 years old, founder. He asked about Community Forward, about the operational transformation, about how I'd managed to do more with less, about my philosophy on leadership and culture and team building. I answered honestly, talked about efficiency and data and systems, but also about people, about creating environments where people felt valued, where mission mattered more than metrics, where success meant impact, not just profit. James smiled. That's exactly what I want here. We've been too focused on growth and not enough on sustainability, on culture. I need someone who can make us better at the fundamentals while keeping us human. I think you're that person. There were more interviews. The executive team, board members, everyone asked versions of the same questions. Everyone seemed impressed by what I'd done at Community Forward. Nobody seemed concerned about the 25-year gap Derek said would disqualify me. On February 20th, Vanessa called. They want to offer you the position, COO, $225,000 base salary, bonus potential, full benefits, start date April 1st if you're interested. $225,000. I'd never made that much money. Even at Anderson, even adjusted for inflation, I'd never been worth that much to anyone. Yes, I accept. Wonderful. I'll send the offer letter. Caroline, congratulations. You earned this. I hung up, sat in my car in the parking lot of the grocery store where I'd taken the call, and cried. Not sad crying, relief crying, validation crying. 25 years of being told I was useless, and someone just offered me $225,000 to do what Derek said didn't matter? I drove home, walked inside. Derek was in his study. I got a job offer today. He looked up, surprised, amused almost. Doing what? Chief Operating Officer, software company, $225,000. His face changed. Confusion. Disbelief. What company? Velocity Software Solutions. I start April 1st. The color drained from his face. Complete white. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. He just stared at me like I said something impossible. Derek? What's wrong? His voice came out strangled. Velocity? You're joking. I'm not joking. I accepted the offer. Why? Caroline, that's my company. I work at Velocity. I'm VP of sales there. The room tilted. I grabbed the back of a chair. What? You're going to be COO at my company? My company? And that's when it hit me, when the full magnitude of what I'd just done became clear. I'd been headhunted by Derek's company, offered a C-level executive position, a position higher than his, a position where he would report to me. Derek's useless wife had just become Derek's boss. I should have felt guilty, apologetic, worried about how this would affect our marriage, but all I felt was the most satisfying sense of justice I'd ever experienced. Yes, I said quietly. I guess I am.
The weeks between accepting the offer and starting were the strangest of my life. Derek and I existed in the same house, but lived in completely different realities. He didn't believe it at first, thought there was some mistake, that I'd misunderstood the offer, that Velocity wouldn't actually hire me once they realized I was his wife. They'll rescind the offer when they find out, he said the night I told him. It's a conflict of interest. You can't be COO at the company where your husband works. James Mitchell knows I'm married. He knows my last name. If he wanted to ask if I had connections to anyone at Velocity, he could have. He didn't. Maybe he doesn't know you. Maybe it doesn't matter. I'm VP of sales. Of course he knows me. But as the days passed and no one from Velocity called to rescind anything, Derek's confidence wavered. He started checking his email obsessively, waiting for some announcement, some indication this was real. I signed the offer letter, completed background checks, filled out benefits paperwork, set my start date for April 1st. Everything proceeded exactly as Vanessa said it would. Derek watched it happen with growing horror. "How did this happen?" he asked one evening in mid-March. Not angry, genuinely confused. "How did you get a COO position? You've been out of work for 25 years. Apparently not everyone sees it that way. But you don't have experience, real experience. I have 20 years running operations for a $1 million organization. That's real experience. It's nonprofit. It's different. Not as different as you think." He couldn't process it. For 25 years, he'd built an entire worldview around me being useless, unemployable, less than. And now that worldview was crumbling, and he didn't know how to rebuild it. The company-wide announcement went out March 25th, 6 days before my start date. I wasn't there to see it, but Derek was. From James Mitchell, CEO, to all staff. Subject: new Chief Operating Officer. Team, I'm pleased to announce that Caroline Lawrence will be joining Velocity as our new Chief Operating Officer, effective April 1st. Caroline brings extensive operational leadership experience, most recently transforming operations at Community Forward Fund, where she increased efficiency and impact significantly. She'll be leading all operational functions and working closely with department heads to strengthen our systems and culture. Please join me in welcoming Caroline to the Velocity team. Derek called me 20 minutes after the email went out. I was at Community Forward, finishing my transition plan with the board. "Everyone knows." His voice was tight, strained. "The whole company just got an email. You're starting Monday as COO. My boss saw it. My team saw it. Everyone's asking me if it's the same Lawrence, if you're my wife. What are they telling them? I don't know what to tell them. This is humiliating. Why is it humiliating that your wife got a good job? Because you're going to be my boss, Caroline. Don't you understand? The VP of Sales reports to the COO. I report to you, my wife, who I've been supporting for 25 years while you played nonprofit. And now you're my boss." I didn't play nonprofit. I worked there. And now someone recognizes that work has value. I'm sorry if that's uncomfortable for you. He hung up. April 1st arrived, my first day. I drove to Velocity's office building downtown, same building Derek drove to every day, same parking garage, same elevator, but this time I was going to the executive floor, corner office, my name already on the door. Caroline Lawrence, Chief Operating Officer. James Mitchell met me at 8 a.m., gave me a tour, introduced me to the executive team. Everyone was welcoming, professional. No one mentioned Derek. No one asked about the last name connection. At 9:30, James called an all-hands leadership meeting. Department heads, VPs, directors. About 30 people in the large conference room. Derek was there, sitting in the back. He looked sick, pale, wouldn't make eye contact with me. James stood at the front. "Everyone, I want to officially introduce Caroline Lawrence, our new COO. Caroline will be overseeing operations, finance, HR, and working with all of you to improve our systems and culture. Caroline, why don't you say a few words?" I stood, looked around the room, saw Derek in the back, staring at the table. "Thank you, James. I am excited to be here. My background is in operational transformation and efficiency. I believe great operations make great culture possible. I'm looking forward to working with all of you to make Velocity even stronger." Polite applause, professional smiles, and then James said the words that made everything real. Quick note on reporting structure. Caroline oversees all operational departments. That includes sales operations, which means our VP of Sales reports to Caroline. Derek, you'll be meeting with Caroline weekly for performance reviews and strategic planning. The room was silent. Everyone's eyes shifted to Derek, then to me, then back to Derek. His face was white, completely white, like all the blood had drained out. His jaw was clenched, hands gripping the edge of the table. I met his eyes, held his gaze, and smiled slightly. For 25 years, he'd told me I was useless, that I'd never survive in the real world, that I was unemployable, less than. And now that worldview was crumbling, and he didn't know how to rebuild it. The unemployable, less than. Their useless wife had become his boss, and there was nothing he could do about it.
The first 2 weeks at Velocity were intense but exhilarating. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be good at something that people valued, to walk into meetings and have people actually listen, to make decisions that mattered, to be seen. James gave me complete authority over operations, finance, HR, IT, facilities, and sales operations, which meant Derek's department. I reviewed budgets, analyzed workflows, met with every department head individually, started building relationships, understanding the business. Everyone was professional, welcoming. No one treated me like Derek's wife. They treated me like the COO, like someone who deserved to be there. Except Derek. Our first one-on-one meeting was April 8th. My office, 9 a.m. He arrived exactly on time, sat across from my desk, wouldn't look directly at me. "How are you adjusting?" I asked. "Professional, calm." "Fine. I'd like to review your Q1 numbers. Sales were down 8% from projections. Can you walk me through what happened?" "Market conditions, competition, the usual." "Your team has 30% turnover in the past year. That's significantly higher than other departments. Do you know why?" "Sales is high pressure. People leave." "Not at this rate in well-managed teams. I'd like to do some exit interviews with former team members. Understand the patterns." His jaw tightened. "Are you questioning my management?" "I'm doing my job, Derek. Understanding operations, including sales operations. If there's a retention problem, we need to address it." "This is humiliating. You know that, right? Sitting here while my wife critiques my performance?" "I'm not your wife in this building. I'm your COO, and these are legitimate operational concerns." He left after 20 minutes, barely contained anger radiating off him. But the data didn't lie. Derek's team had problems. High turnover, missed targets, low morale. I heard it from HR, from team members who came to me directly, from the numbers that showed a department underperforming despite a strong market. I talked to James in week 2. "We have a sales leadership problem. Derek's team is struggling. Turnover is high, performance is declining. I think we need to put him on a performance improvement plan." James nodded slowly. "I've been concerned about that department. I hired you partly because I knew we needed operational changes I wasn't equipped to make. If you think a PIP is warranted, I trust your judgment. It's going to be complicated. He's my husband." "Is that going to be a problem for you?" "No. I can separate personal and professional, but I wanted you to know the situation. Caroline, I hired you because you're qualified, not despite being Derek's wife, not because of it. You're the COO. If Derek's performance needs addressing, address it. That's your job." I drafted the performance improvement plan. 30 days, specific metrics, expectations, accountability, everything documented and measured. Derek's reaction was predictable. At home, he exploded. "A PIP? Are you serious? You're putting me on a performance improvement plan? I've been at this company for 8 years. I was VP of sales before you even had a job. And now you're documenting me like I'm some entry-level failure? Your department is underperforming. 30% turnover, declining sales. That's not personal, that's business. This is revenge for all the years I said you couldn't handle corporate work. You're proving a point. I'm doing my job. If any other VP had your numbers, they'd be on a PIP too. You're not special. I'm your husband. At work, you're my VP of sales, and your performance isn't meeting standards. That's reality." He didn't speak to me for 3 days after that. At home, we existed in cold silence. He slept in the guest room, left for work early, came home late, avoided me completely. At work, it was worse. He was hostile in meetings, defensive, blamed other departments for his team's failures, made snide comments about new leadership and people who don't understand sales. His team noticed, and increasingly, they came to me instead of him, asked questions, requested guidance, treated me like the leader Derek wasn't being. One of his senior reps, Amanda, came to my office in week 3. I'm sorry to go around, Derek, but I need to talk to you about team morale. Please, sit. It's bad. Derek's been angry since you started. Takes it out on us, yells in meetings, blames us for numbers we can't control. Half the team is updating their resumes. We're going to have more turnover if nothing changes. Thank you for telling me. This is exactly what I need to know. After Amanda left, I sat at my desk and felt the weight of it. Derek wasn't just failing professionally, he was making his team miserable. And it was because of me. Because his ego couldn't handle reporting to his wife. But I couldn't fix his ego, couldn't make him see me differently, could only do my job, hold him accountable, protect his team from his dysfunction. That evening, I drove home exhausted, walked into our house. Derek was in the kitchen, looked at me with something between hatred and desperation. "You're destroying me," he said quietly. "You know that, right? You're systematically destroying my career. I'm holding you accountable for your performance. That's not destruction, that's management. You're my wife. You're supposed to support me. I did support you for 25 years, while you called me useless, while you dismissed everything I did, while you told me I had no value. Now I have a job, a real job, and I'm good at it. I'm sorry that's hard for you, but I'm not going to fail at this job to protect your ego. So that's it? Your career matters now and mine doesn't? Your career matters, but so does mine. For the first time in 25 years, mine matters too, and I'm not giving that up." The 30-day performance improvement plan ended in early May. Derek's numbers hadn't improved. In fact, they'd gotten worse. Sales were down another 12%. 2 more team members had resigned. His attitude in meetings remained hostile and uncooperative. I sat across from him in my office on May 10th, the PIP review meeting. HR Director Sandra was there as witness, everything documented. "Derek, your performance during the PIP period didn't meet the established benchmarks. Sales declined further. Team retention worsened. Your leadership behaviors, as reported by team members and observed in meetings, remain concerning." He stared at the table, said nothing. "We have 3 options. Extended PIP with more intensive support, demotion to a senior sales role without management responsibilities, or separation from the company." His head snapped up. "You're firing me? Your own husband?" "I'm addressing a performance issue with an employee who isn't meeting expectations. This isn't personal." "Everything about this is personal. You took this job to humiliate me, to prove some point, and now you're firing me to complete your revenge." "Derek, your team's morale is at an all-time low. Your numbers are declining. Your behavior is affecting the entire department. This isn't about us. It's about what's best for Velocity." "What's best for Velocity? I built the sales team at this company. I was here when you were still playing nonprofit, and now you're throwing me out?" Sandra intervened gently. "Derek, the decision doesn't have to be made today. You can take the weekend to consider your options." He stood up, looked at me with something that might have been hatred or heartbreak. I couldn't tell anymore. "I'll make it easy for you. I quit. Effective immediately. I'm not going to sit here and let my wife destroy what's left of my dignity." He walked out, didn't clean out his desk, just walked out of the building, out of Velocity, out of the career he'd built for 8 years. I sat there with Sandra in silence. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I don't know." He didn't come home that night, or the next night. I got a text on Sunday. "Staying at a hotel. Need space. We'll talk about next steps later." Next steps meant divorce. We both knew it. A marriage couldn't survive what had happened. Maybe it had been dying for years and we just hadn't admitted it. Maybe it died the moment I became successful at something he'd spent 25 years telling me I couldn't do. Work continued. I promoted Amanda to interim VP of sales. She was everything Derek wasn't. Collaborative, supportive. Her team responded immediately. Morale improved within weeks. Sales started climbing back to projected targets. James pulled me aside in late June. "You made the right call with Derek. I should have addressed his management issues years ago. I'm sorry you had to be the one to do it. It's my job. It cost you your marriage. That's not nothing. My marriage cost me 25 years of believing I was useless. Maybe this is just the bill coming due." Derek filed for divorce in early July, cited irreconcilable differences, asked for spousal support since I was now making significantly more than he was. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. I hired an attorney. We'd split assets. He'd get something, but not much. Most of our wealth had been built while I was unemployed and he was the breadwinner. Now the tables had turned. Now I was the one with the career and the income and the future. Our kids called. Jake first, then Emma. Both concerned, both confused about what had happened. "Dad says you ruined his career," Jake said carefully. 25 years old, trying to navigate his parents' divorce. I held him accountable for his performance. He chose to quit rather than accept management. That's not me ruining anything. That's him making a choice. "He's really better, Mom. Says you became someone he doesn't recognize." Maybe I did. Or maybe I became someone I always was and he never wanted to see. I don't know anymore, Jake. I just know I couldn't keep being the person he needed me to be. Small, quiet, useless. You were never useless. Your father thought I was. Said it for 20 years. I started to believe him. This job, it showed me he was wrong. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. Emma was more direct. "Good for you, Mom. Honestly, Dad treated you like crap for years. We saw it. We hated it. If this is what it took for you to finally value yourself, then I'm glad it happened." By the end of July, Derek had moved to Chicago, took a sales director position at a smaller company, started over at 55. We barely spoke except through attorneys. I stayed at Velocity, stayed in the house, stayed in the life I'd built not despite Derek, but because of finally stepping out of his shadow. The woman he'd called useless for 20 years had taken his job, his income, his sense of superiority, and in the process, she had found herself. By September, I'd been COO for 6 months. Half a year of proving I belonged. Half a year of building something real. The operational transformation was undeniable. Sales had recovered completely under Amanda's leadership. Overhead costs were down 15%. Employee retention was up across all departments. We'd implemented new systems, streamlined processes, hired strategically. Revenue was projected to hit $60 million by year-end, up from $50 when I started. James called me into his office on a Tuesday afternoon. "Caroline, I want to talk about the future." "Of course." "I'm 61. I've been running this company for 15 years. I'm tired. I want to step back, move to an executive chairman role, focus on strategy and board relations, not day-to-day operations." I could see where this was going. You need a new CEO. I need you to be CEO. The words hung in the air. 6 months ago, I'd been a volunteer at a nonprofit. Derek had called me unemployable, useless, too old, too irrelevant. Now the CEO of a $60 million company wanted me to replace him. "James, I've been in corporate for 6 months. That's not enough experience to run a company. You've been running operations for 20 years. You've transformed this company in half a year. The board agrees. We want to announce your promotion to CEO effective January 1st. I'll transition to chairman. You'll have full authority." What does the board think about my timeline, my background? They think you're exactly what we need. Someone who leads with purpose, who values people as much as profit, who can scale operations without losing culture. That's you, Caroline. I accepted, not because I was ready, but because I'd learned something in the past 6 months. You're never fully ready. You just have to be willing to try. The announcement went out in October. Caroline Lawrence promoted from COO to CEO effective January 2025. Industry publications picked it up. LinkedIn exploded with congratulations. Former colleagues from Anderson Consulting reached out. People I hadn't spoken to in 25 years suddenly remembered I existed. And Derek saw it. Of course he saw it. Everyone saw it. He sent a text in late October, the first direct communication in months. "Congratulations on the CEO position. You've come a long way." I stared at the message, wanted to feel vindicated, triumphant, but mostly I just felt tired. Tired of the war that our marriage had become. Tired of proving myself to someone who'd never wanted to see me. I texted back simply, "Thank you." I heard through mutual friends that Derek was struggling in Chicago. The sales director role wasn't what he'd hoped. Smaller company, less prestige, financial pressure from the divorce settlement and losing his Velocity salary. He'd gone from VP at a thriving company to middle management at a struggling one. Part of me felt sorry for him. 25 years together meant something, even if it had been toxic. But I couldn't fix his life, couldn't make him see that his downfall wasn't my success. It was his own inability to accept that I had value too. By December, the divorce was finalized. I kept the house, split retirement accounts. He got a small settlement. Nothing like what he would have received if our situations had been reversed. If I had the one who quit, who walked away, who failed. Our kids spent Christmas with me. Jake brought his girlfriend. Emma brought her best friend. We cooked together, laughed, celebrated not just the holiday, but the year that had changed everything. Mom, I'm proud of you. Not just because of the CEO thing, because you finally saw what we always saw, that you're brilliant, that you always were. It took me 53 years to see it. Better late than never. Jake raised his glass. To Mom, the most useless woman Derek ever met, he grinned, who's about to run a $60 million company. We laughed, toasted, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 25 years. Free. I became CEO of Velocity Software Solutions on January 1st, 2025. 53 years old. 26 years after I walked away from my consulting career because my husband convinced me I was making the wrong choice. It turns out the only wrong choice was believing him. The first 9 months as CEO have been the most challenging and rewarding of my life. We're on track to hit $70 million in revenue this year. We've expanded into 2 new markets. Employee satisfaction scores are the highest they've ever been. And I wake up every morning excited to go to work, excited to lead, excited to prove that purpose and profit aren't opposing forces. James transitioned smoothly to executive chairman. He supports me, but doesn't micromanage, trusts me to run the company I've already proven I can run. It's the opposite of every dynamic I had with Derek, built on respect instead of control. Amanda is thriving as VP of Sales. She's everything a leader should be. Her team's retention rate is 95%. Sales are up 22% year over year. She just got engaged last month, invited me to the wedding, called me a mentor, a role model, words I never thought anyone would use to describe me. I heard Derek got laid off from the Chicago company in July. The firm downsized. He's currently unemployed, 56 years old, searching for sales positions in a competitive market. The irony isn't lost on me. The man who spent 25 years telling me I was unemployable is now struggling to find work himself. I don't take pleasure in it. I don't wish him failure. I just wish he's seen me sooner, valued me earlier, understood that my success didn't require his failure, that there was room for both of us to be competent, valued, successful. But he couldn't see it. And I can't fix that. Jake called last week. Said Derek asked him if I'd be willing to provide a reference for job applications. The audacity was almost funny. Almost. What did you tell him? I asked. That he should ask you himself, that you're not the enemy he's made you out to be. I'm not sure I can give him a reference, Jake. I fired him. Or Rather, he quit before I could fire him. That's not exactly a strong endorsement. I know, Mom. I think he's just desperate, realizing maybe he burned bridges he shouldn't have. I haven't decided yet if I'll help him. Part of me wants to be magnanimous, prove I'm the bigger person. Part of me remembers 25 years of being called useless and thinks he can figure it out himself the way I had to. But that's a decision for another day. Today, I'm the CEO of a $70 million company. I have a team of 200 people who respect me, children who are proud of me, a life I built not despite the obstacles, but because I finally stopped accepting someone else's definition of my worth. My husband called me useless for 20 years. Told me I'd never survive in the real world, that I was unemployable, irrelevant, too old, too far removed, too worthless to matter. His company headhunted me, made me COO, then promoted me to CEO. The real world, he said I couldn't handle, wanted me badly enough to put me in charge. And the man he spent decades telling me I was nothing? He's the one who couldn't survive, couldn't adapt, couldn't accept that competence isn't a zero-sum game. I don't know where Derek will end up. I hope he finds something, finds peace, finds a way to see that his bitterness destroyed more than my confidence. It destroyed his own career. But I know where I am. I'm free. I'm valued. I'm exactly as capable as I always was. I just needed someone other than Derek to see it. And once I did, everything changed. If you're listening to this and someone in your life has convinced you you're useless, unemployable, too old, too inexperienced, too anything, hear me. They're wrong. You're not too anything. You're exactly enough. You just need the chance to prove it, and the courage to stop believing the person who benefits from keeping you small. I'm Caroline Lawrence. I'm 53 years old. I'm the CEO of Velocity Software Solutions, and I spent 26 years believing I was useless. I wasn't useless. I was just waiting for the right opportunity to show everyone, including myself, what I'd always been capable of. Derek was wrong about everything, and I'm so grateful I finally figured that out. Subscribe for more stories about women who refused to stay small, who discovered their power, who proved that it's never too late to become exactly who you were always meant to be.